webinar that, or a series of webinars that we've been launching. And today I'm just super excited that we are going to be covering the e-commerce journey. Now, this is a topic that I've been wanting to go deep dive in for a long time, because getting into the customer journey is a very complex and also can be a little bit confusing. What we see nowadays versus, let's say, 10 years ago or 15 years ago is massively different. The customer journey, specifically for e-commerce, people don't just click an ad, go to a landing page, and purchase. Now, some do, but the majority of customers do not. It's actually a long process for that individual to become a customer. So I'm really excited to get into this, and also just a couple housekeeping items. Since we are doing webinars every other week, if anyone who is watching this either today or down the road, definitely take a moment to subscribe to our channel to get access to future webinars and also access to all the past webinars that we've ran in the past. Also, joining me today is Cece. So Cece is our director of e-commerce. Cece's been on our team for the past 2+ years, and outside of that, she's been doing e-commerce for about 10+ years. So Cece, why don't you take a moment to say hello?
Hi everybody. Made my introduction. I'm Cece, Director of Ecomm. Been working at Rise for 2 years plus. Working on paid media for 12 years plus. So have a lot of insights today to share with you about ecomm, customer journey, attribution, etc.
Yeah, CC comes with a wealth of knowledge. For any of our clients that are listening, they can definitely attest to that. And so let's just get into this. So the webinar that we have planned for today, we're going to dissect the customer journey. And now, instead of just giving some random stats of best practices or what we generally see, we figured let's take an existing client of Rise, and we're going to go in and actually share data points on the customer journey that we, and specifically CC and the e-commerce team, sees and has been seeing over the past year, just so that way anyone who's watching this webinar, they can actually see, wow, I have a better understanding of this customer journey and maybe how I should be thinking about this for e-commerce. So with that, let's just jump right in over here. So again, as I mentioned, this is a case study format. As anyone who is watching this, if they have any questions, feel free to jump in with any questions or comments or answers. But to get into this is an e-commerce client, and they were looking for growth, and they really wanted to drive more and more sales from ads year over year. But once we started working on this brand, there were a lot of things that just were off that was actually really limiting their growth. So Cece, why don't you just kind of tee up for a second on a little bit more about the pain points from this client and maybe some growth inhibitors that we've been seeing.
The backstory is this client wanted to grow, focusing only on new acquisition customers. Like, all of our campaigns were targeting new buyers, and they wanted to grow based only on that, but not seeing the bigger picture, not not understanding how the full marketing funnel works, not seeing how all channels contribute between each other, not even considering the customer lifetime value. So they were not hitting the ROAS. They were saying they were not seeing any growth from campaigns. But then we started seeing kind of trying to understand the data and trying to go deeper into what their new customers were, who they were, what their retention rates were, trying to see the big picture to understand why they were not hitting the growth that they wanted or they were expecting from campaigns.
Yeah, and it's really interesting. So they weren't necessarily seeing growth from ads, or they didn't think they were seeing growth, but as we do, and as CC and team does on the e-commerce side, we don't just look at ad data, we look at platform data. In this case, they're a Shopify client, and Cece, we saw a totally differend story, huh?
Yeah, definitely. We usually want, like when we work on ecom, we ask our clients to get access to the backend to understand, like, again, paid media, it's only one channel to grow and to scale. You also have SEO, you have social media, you have organic social media, you have email marketing, you have a lot of different channels, affiliate, there are lots. So to understand the big picture and understand how they all work together, we usually go back to the overall ecom performance. And what we were seeing there was more revenue, 25% more of revenue, 28% more on online store sales, plus online conversion, online sessions, 14% more. Those that traffic was coming not only from, like, specifically from search sessions, social sessions, everything, but we were seeing a decrease in returning customer rate. Overall, what we were seeing was that Shopify was showing a growth that was not reflected on the ads platform.
Yeah.
So we needed to go deeper and start understanding, okay, why do campaigns are showing lower ROAS when we do see a growth? What's going on in here? What are we missing?
Yeah, yeah, and that's just like so much of marketing. It's really the answers are in the data, but you really almost have to be a detective and really sift through all the data points to really understand what is happening and what's the true story here. And on the next slide is just another indication of that, where the ad platforms itself wasn't really showing much growth, but when we took a look at Shopify, different story, right, Cece?
Definitely. That's when you started, like, when you start seeing different story on Shopify versus what you're seeing on platforms, we start going deeper, because I mean, the overall analysis of the store was showing growth. Okay, where are we getting that growth? If campaigns are not reflecting that growth, where are they coming? And then we started digging, okay, let's check on new customer acquisition. Is it because we are not acquiring enough customers? And we went deeper and we saw that we had a 20% increase on new customer acquisition. So again, it's kind of when you see something on ads that's not reflected, like, and you start seeing differences with the Shopify store or the WooCommerce analytics, you need to start going deeper to understand what the real metrics are. Like, you are seeing more revenue, but your campaigns have less, are not hitting the ROAS, are not getting conversions. So you need to start going deeper. Where are we? What are the missing points? What are we not seeing? Why are our campaigns showing low conversions when we do have more sales and we do have more, not only revenues, but also more new customers and more new online stores? So this is kind of a path that we start taking once we detect that something is not reflected on our campaigns. We start digging deeper on the analytics of the online store. It's not only about campaigns, it's about everything. It's about how all channels work together. So we need to understand customer journey, window to conversion. We need to understand all of these different data points. And that's the kind of, yeah, you said that, Ben. It's kind of a detective work. Just start digging and see where you can find where the pain points are.
Yeah. And it's really interesting. Sometimes, I mean, maybe a marketer with just a couple years of experience, if they're in Google Ads or Meta Ads, name the platform of choice, and they're in there and the return on ad spend just doesn't look good, natural reaction is like, oh, well, I guess we should pull back or pause. But what you really have to do is really go deep inside the data, as Cece was mentioning, and really understand, actually, maybe the campaign's doing really well, but maybe other elements of the customer journey, there's some friction points or maybe just total disconnects that needs to be addressed. And it's not necessarily the campaign's fault. And we're going to get to that in a second. So through Cece's detective work, I guess I should say, is she took time to really understand what is happening here to see, is this an ad problem or is this something larger that the client needs to address? So on this slide here, there's a lot of different data points, but Cece's going to call out some of the highlights of what we found, and what we see within this e-commerce client is very similar to a bunch of e-commerce clients that we currently work on. So any e-commerce brand that's either listening today or down the road, definitely pay attention to this slide. So Cece, I'll have you walk through some of these key points.
Yeah, there are a few things that when you see discrepancies on what you're seeing on the analytics, on the overall performance of the store versus campaign, and as an e-commerce manager, you need to have in mind the bigger picture. What that means. Do you know what's the average touch points to conversion? That means how many steps or instances does the user have before purchasing something on your store? Like from the first website visit to the conversion, how many steps, how many touch points do you have? Second, the window to conversion. How many days, weeks, months does the user need to make the decision to purchase? Since the first visit, since he or she went into your website, started researching, found something that he liked, but then didn't buy, because buying something takes a decision making, takes time. So how many days from that first visit to the purchase happen? And then another thing you need to understand is also your customer lifetime value. It's not the same to take into account the first purchase revenue, but also how many times, with frequency, how many real revenue each new customer brings, and then understand the attribution of campaigns. So for example, if we have, in this specific case, a client that had 6 touch points to conversion, and we are using a data-driven attribution, that means that one conversion is going to be split in early touch points, mid touch points, and late touch points. One conversion is going to impact on all of the channels that have an impact on that, on the customer journey, and the value is going to be split. So maybe on the early touch points that are going to receive a 13% of the attribution, you're going to see that those campaigns have lower ROAS, higher cost per acquisition, and everything. But that makes sense because it's the early touch point. And if you have 6 touch points to conversion, then you're going to split in 6 different stages all your revenue and the revenue of the first purchase. So that's why maybe you are seeing lower ROAS on some cold and prospecting campaigns versus the lower funnel campaigns. And for example, when you start digging, you also want, you know that your touch points to conversions are 6, but you need to know which campaigns or which channels are impacting on each funnel step. Which are the early touch points? Where did you get the new visitors? That's, for example, the acquisition campaign, like the prospecting campaign where you target cold audiences. Which are the touch points in the middle? Maybe email, SEO, social, remarketing campaigns, and which is the late touch point. And there are unique paths, unique ways, but you need to understand which are those paths, because you need to understand what campaign is bringing you your new visitors and what campaigns or what channels are bringing you the late conversions and which are having impact on the mid funnel. Kind of seeing the overall scenario and not just considering one campaign and one channel per se on its own, because they do not work on its own, they work on an ecosystem.
Definitely. And just take a look at this path example, which this is a real type of path where you see where any marketer that's listening to this right now, Performance Max, maybe they say like, Google Ads is sharing that Performance Max doesn't perform well because they're not purchasing in the 5, 15, 20, or 30-day attribution window based off of last touch. But if, for this client in particular, if we were to pause Performance Max, sure, Google Ads dashboard might look, oh, wow, we boosted efficiency and we have a lower cost per conversion. But look what we just did. All of these paths that are real paths that happen, performance would blow away all these customers. So Performance Max really opened up the mid or the upper funnel. So people clicked on a PMax ad, they clicked email, social, email, brand email, and other iterations. But PMax was awesome at just getting them into the funnel, and then let the brand and all elements of that brand do its job in converting that customer. And if a user was just in Google Ads and it's like, Performance Max isn't doing well from last click perspective, I'm just going to turn it off. Well, then that means you just lost a bunch of new customers because you weren't patient and didn't really look at the data.
Yeah, I would love to know from our viewers, how many of you know about your customer journey, your window to conversion, your touch points to conversion, your customer lifetime value, which campaigns or which channels are working for prospecting, which are the ones that are working for lower funnel. So if you want to give us a comment there, you're more than welcome. It will be super interesting to know who is keeping track of all these metrics.
That's true, because if you want to succeed in e-commerce in 2024 and beyond, you really need to have this dialed in. And if you don't know, that's totally fine. And that's actually a step forward in the right direction, that you realize you don't know, and then you probably want to start to figure that out, versus just saying, well, I don't really care. I'm just going to run some Google ads and kind of hope for the best. But yes, in the chat, definitely share your experiences with understanding some of this data. So to take a step back a second, so this is all what CC and team identified is like, wow, there is so much more beyond the click than just someone seeing an ad and then click. And oftentimes in that conversion window, it can take up to 30 days for the user to even purchase and touch so many different channels along the way before that conversion. And what we found is also through this looks to me, CC, that paid media was a pretty important channel for this client.
It was. In fact, one of the concerns of the client was, hey, should we pause paid media? We're not seeing the ROAS. We're not seeing campaigns that are helping with growth. But then when you start digging, you see those customer journeys starting with paid media. And then if you go to see where the new visitors are coming, 32%, more than 30% were coming from paid campaigns. More than 30%. So imagine that. Stopping campaigns, you get 33% less of traffic. Oh my gosh. I don't want to imagine what would have happened with that, honestly. Yeah, that's what another insight that you can always take. If you're seeing that your customer journey shows that PMax or paid media is your early touch point, just go and see where are your new visitors coming from, and understand that maybe they are not converting and they are not attributed the whole revenue and conversions, but if you post them, you will lose a lot of visitors. You will lose the upper funnel, and having the upper funnel is the most important thing to getting the lower funnel.
It's true. And man, so many times, someone's just looking at Google Ads, for example, or Meta, and they're like, oh, remarketing does so well, let's just run a remarketing campaign. Well, you don't have a bottom funnel if you don't have a top of the funnel. So really excellent point right here. And on this next slide, we're going to share what happens, when you do pause paid media, because in this case, a situation came up with the client outside of their control for the most part, that impacted that. But Cece, I'm gonna have you walk through a couple scenarios that happened in this graph or over this timeline where they increased ad spend and what happened to revenue, and then also what happens when they decided to pause, unfortunately.
Yeah, so we started seeing a little bit of ROAS. So this customer wanted to push with budgets to increase, because they wanted to grow. Okay, so I'm going to push with budgets. So they started pushing with budget. ROAS and revenue was not growing to the same scale as budgets until campaigns were paused. So what you're seeing here, if we know that this client has a 30-day window to conversion. When you start pushing, you cannot expect to see the revenue the day after starting pushing. You know that you have a 30-day window to conversion. So you're probably going to see the impact in a 30-day date range, right? So in this case, it was 30 days because the window to conversion is 30 days. So that's why I'm saying you need to know what's your window to conversion. If it's 1 week, well, yes, then when you push budget, just go and check on sales and revenue and the impacts after that week passed. If you do have a 3 months window to conversion, then do not expect in the near future to see a lot of growth. But then what happened when the Google campaigns were paused? They had a couple of weeks paused, and then that was in September. And then you see the decrease in revenue in October. Again, you started pushing with budget in August. You see the impact in September because you have higher revenue, higher sales. Mid-September, campaigns were paused for a couple of weeks. You're going to see that impact on October. So you see that decrease in October. That's kind of showing specifically what we were seeing on analytics. It's kind of, okay, yes, what's happening here is that you do have a 6 touch points to conversions. You do have a conversion window of 30 days. Your main channel of acquisition of new visitors is paid media. So if you post campaigns, you're going to see a decrease in growth. If you push on campaigns, you're not going to see immediate growth. You need to be patient and see what happens on the next couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And if you think, sorry, Ben, on that note, like I just remember that you mentioned the remarketing campaigns on Meta. That's kind of, a lot of clients come and say, yeah, I want revenue now, so I'm going to run a remarketing campaign on Meta. That's where I'm going to see conversions coming and I will be able to grow. Okay, yeah, you will be able to get short-term conversions, but then you're going to exhaust that audience if you do not build the upper funnel. And that's going to be worse because those that were loyal customers are exhausted and will stop buying it all. So you will not be even getting conversions from the low funnel.
Yeah, and then you unfortunately break the machine. But yeah, just to recap, it's so imperative just to be patient. So right here in August, we increased ad spend, and I'm sure Cece was working with a client, and they're probably like, "Where's my sales? Where's my sales?" And Cece's probably like, "Be easy, it's gonna come." And then also when they pause ads, let's say right around here, sales are booming, and there's probably a week where we're like, wow, we don't even have to run ads, and we're doing great in sales. But then the drop off happens. So always remember, whatever you do today may impact today a little bit, but not really. It's really what's going to happen a month from now. So as you're planning, if you want more sales next month, the next quarter, you should probably be increasing spend today. So that's just an excellent visualization right there, which leads us to really what we're identifying, and we all kind of knew this, but this is definitely backed by data. The approach to e-commerce and winning e-commerce in 2024 is really, it's got to be a full ecosystem approach. You can't be a one-trick pony. You can't just have your Google Shopping campaign. You can't just have your Google Remarketing or PMax. You need to really build up the brand, and every extension of that brand needs to have its own marketing initiative. So with that, I'm going to have Cece just kind of walk through, just as an example, ecosystem approach of just how a general consumer and customer would interact, just to showcase the importance of being wherever that customer is. So Cece, I'll let you just kind of walk through this hypothetical example.
And I want you to pay attention to this because I'm going to ask a question at the end. So this is a hypothetical situation. The user Googles coffee mug and clicks on an ad that redirects to the website. Starts seeing the value proposition, sees the offer, sees everything, but decided that he's not going to buy at the moment. He's unsure. He doesn't know about the shipping process, the taxes. I don't know. He's not sure. But he gets a pop-up to subscribe to emails and subscribe because I like the map, I liked the website, so I want to get some more news. Days later, he gets an email. I mean, if you do have a pop-up, please tell me that you do have a welcome series and you're sending emails. So get emails. He gets an email with a tempting offer like, hey, we saw that you were seeing the map. Maybe you're interested in this 10% discount. He doesn't, so he Googles your store reviews because he wants to know, okay, what are people saying about this specific store, right? Because we usually make decisions based on reviews or what our friends or family is telling us about experience, right? So Google's review goes into the website again organically because he clicks on an organic result. So goes into the website, keeps scrolling, still unsure because he just got an ad from the competitor and it was showing another really pretty coffee mug. So just unsure, he doesn't buy. There are a lot of options. He gets overwhelmed and he quits buying. Weeks later, he sees an ad on Instagram from your brand that reminds him that he wanted to buy a coffee mug. So what happens? He stops overthinking. He wants to build a cart. So he Googles again your brand and clicks on a branded campaign and places an order. So my question for you, to what channel, to what campaign should we attribute this conversion?
Great question. So anyone who's chiming in and bold enough to say which channel should attribute the conversion to, definitely chime in, whether it's the ad, whether it's email, whether it's branded, organic. And this is a real question that we have to pose to our clients just to kind of get in the right format, that this is a hard thing to answer. And if no one's posting any answers right now, well, the answer is it's tough. You can't just give credit to one specific ad. And unfortunately, so much of marketers have been trained to give credit to either that first touch or that mid touch or that last touch and give all credit to that one campaign, where that's really not the case. That's not how it works. So a better way of doing it, and we see through data that if you do this, you're going to see some solid results, is a full funnel e-commerce approach where everything in the marketing funnel has its own purpose and you work each prospect through the funnel, and you're going to get a lot more customers that way. So Cece, there's a bit on this slide. I'd love for you just to kind of share some of the key points from that.
There's a bit alert. So, well, we all know the marketing funnel, upper funnel, mid funnel, and lower funnel, but it doesn't end on lower funnel. We also have retention. Retention is super important here because it's going to be your most cost efficient way to grow and to get more revenue. But the thing is, you can't have a lower funnel if you're not building the upper funnel. What we're seeing, what helps to build that upper funnel? Paid media, SEO, referrals. So, and we are not only talking about channels, we are also going to talk about your website. What happens when the user goes into the website, and if your website is not optimized, if it has a poor user experience, if your messaging is just mixed out or is confusing, if you're not promoting to add more things to cart to increase the average order value, if you do not have any of those things, even if you're driving traffic, you're not going to build a strong and qualified upper funnel because you're not having like an optimized website. So it's not only about channels of acquisition, but also of platform and things you can do on your end to capture all that traffic. And then you have the retargeting. We are talking about your warm audiences and your hot audiences. Once they get into the website, they start showing some intent. They add to cart, they click on a video, they sign up for the newsletters, they initiate checkout. they do something that's telling you, I'm interested on what you have to sell me, but I'm not ready yet to buy. And then you have the buyers, and then you have, okay, if I have the buyers, are they only going to buy once, or do you have a chance to increase the purchase frequency, to make those customers refer to other customers? What's the experience? Are you generating a relationship with those buyers, or are you just, okay, I got the purchase and I will forget about them, and then they will go and buy to the competitors on the next time they need to buy something? So it's about all things that work together, different channels, different platforms, different strategies that you can implement to work on an online ecosystem, trying to understand that everything works together. If you do not have a strong upper funnel, you will never have a strong lower funnel. And that's something that usually clients do not want to do, because they need sales now. And I do understand that, but it's okay. We can do remarketing. We can try to push for warm or hot audiences, but you should never underestimate building the upper funnel and doing some brand awareness. You will limit yourself. You will not get to your potential growth. And that was what happening with these clients. They didn't want to build the upper funnel. They wanted sales now. They wanted to push with budgets for cold audiences and get sales now, when there is a lot of things going on. You need to build a relationship. You need to create trust. You need to tackle pain points on the decision process. And that's understanding the ecosystem approach. That's the ecosystem approach, understanding where's the user in which step of the funnel, and trying to help him go to the lower funnel and purchase.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's so true. I mean, if you don't build the upper funnel, you're not going to get the bottom funnel. And then if you don't have the top of the pyramid, you're not going to get the bottom of the pyramid, which is about getting your customers back. So you really, anyone who's watching this, take a screenshot of this, focus on every aspect of the funnel, and you're going to see some dividends. Or I know you're definitely going to see dividends. And each aspect of this funnel should have different goals. So for upper funnel, you can't expect them to click on an ad, they don't even know your brand, and then buy same day, same moment. That's just not how it works. It happens sometimes, but that's not how it works. You need to warm them up and work them through the process and really showcase your brand and the values and the offering that you have. And then yes, within 21, 30 days, they will convert. And then once they do convert, don't just leave them there. They converted, they're probably happy with the product. Reach out to them and communicate with email or paid media. Do win-back campaigns of upcoming sales or gifting campaigns. There's so much that you can do, but every element of this funnel should be targeted to a specific goal in KPI. Upper funnel, maybe it's more just getting that email, building up that engagement. Bottom of the funnel, sure, add to cart, purchase, and then for past customers, your whole focus is either referrals or win-back purchases. So what I'm going to share on this next slide, really, really interesting, is, again, this is data from a client, and from a client, and they were so the numbers didn't add up to them, and through detective work, because again, everything with marketing is very much data driven. The answers are in the data. You just have to sift through it. But what we found is that year over year numbers for this client was down, but new customers were up. So interesting. So Cece, maybe elaborate on that just for a moment.
This is kind of, if you remember when we started the webinar, we were talking about a client that wanted to allocate the whole budget to new customers acquisitions and none to retention. They have been running campaigns for 1 year with that mindset. Do not do anything about retention, win back, nothing, just new acquisitions. And they were seeing some growth, but still not the growth they wanted. So again, digging deeper, trying to understand, You can see here that versus previous period, they were getting more customers, and not only getting more customers, but you can see that 52% of the total customers during the past 12 months were new versus 44 from the previous period. And you can see here on total customers that last 12 months, you had this a pretty similar amount of total customers, but less orders. So I would like to know if any of you can detect any pain points with these on these charts. Anything that's kind of suspicious.
Yeah, definitely, because you have to kind of go through this because it does seem a little strange. So you have total customers about the same, and you actually a lot more new customers than previous period, but the number of orders is down. Cece, I'll just kind of have you share. I mean, what did you find? What was wrong with this scenario?
I mentioned before, they were not doing any retention. So what was happening is they were acquiring new customers, but they were not retaining, and they were not increasing frequency. They were not doing anything. They were limiting themselves. They were not doing anything about the retention, no win back. The frequency of purchase went down, of course. The past purchasers still came back because probably they were buying from competitors that were really engaging with them. They were just relying on new customers. If they had done retention, they would have had the same amount or even the same amount of past purchasers with the same orders plus the new purchasers, and they would have increased their sales and revenue exponentially. They were not doing that. So again, do not just focus on new buyers. You need to also create a relationship with your loyal purchasers. You need to try to win back those that churn. You need to increase the frequency. You need to increase average order value. It's not just about acquiring new buyers. It's about understanding the complete funnel and what you can do to increase a little bit on each step.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's actually a shame for them during that year because what we've talked about is this part of the funnel of getting your customers to buy again is actually probably one of the easiest thing and the most cost-effective items to do in your whole marketing funnel, upper funnel, bottom funnel, on this whole mirrored pyramid. This is the cheapest thing to do because you already convinced them to buy from you. And they actually use their product, and if you're a decent company, I'm sure you have a great product. It's pretty easy for the most part to get people to buy from you, but for this client, they just chose not to focus on that, just assuming that, well, they bought once, they're going to buy again, of course, because we're so great. That's not how it works. People need to be reminded because, as you mentioned earlier, CC, in the other example, they're going to see a competitor ad, and they're like, oh, I was with this company, but yeah, let's try this competitor. People get distracted and they may not be very loyal.
Definitely, and you will see growth from there. I mean, if you want growth, just try to acquire new customers, but never forget about your loyal customers. It's kind of relationship.
Yep. And it's so easy. I mean, it doesn't take a ton of paid media because that sample size is relatively small compared to the whole addressable audience. And then also you have their email. Email marketing is pretty much free. Send them a monthly newsletter, bi-weekly, engage with them, put together a referral program. There's so much that you can do that's just so easy that a lot of marketers or companies might be obsessed with new customers, and just totally annihilate pretty much one of their biggest assets from a customer segment. So that is super helpful. So again, just to reiterate, for any e-commerce brands or marketers watching this, you need to have the funnel. Customers don't operate in just a single file line where they click an ad and they purchase and then they're gonna buy from you forever. definitely not how it works. You have to be present wherever they are, and each item of the funnel has to have a unique goal and purpose. And if you are there from upper funnel, mid funnel, bottom funnel, and have a strong retention play from a marketing standpoint, you're going to do extremely well. So Cece, thank you so much for joining us today and dropping all this knowledge. I love it. I love all the insights and the data that you put forth here. And then anyone who is watching and is interested in chatting about supporting your e-commerce program, definitely contact us, risemkg.com. And then, as always, if anyone who's watching this and wants to access more of our content, because we are publishing these every other week, definitely subscribe to us and get access to future webinars. So with that, I'll end it here, but do appreciate you, Cece, for sharing this and everyone for joining.